All right, everyone, good morning. So welcome back to the Region North MMALC Onboarding Part 3, where we hope that you can get further clarification on your responsibilities as a MMALC at your school site. We're going to begin with the strategic plan and framework that really clarifies and delineates what your position is going to aim to do. So, of course, we're looking at how can we ensure high quality instruction, both Tier 1 and Tier 2, in order to eliminate those opportunity gaps for our emergent bilingual students. And how are we going to do that? Through data-driven decision-making. And again, looking at that district-wide coherence and those focus TLF standards, particularly 1B1, awareness of our students' skills, knowledge, and language proficiency. 3A4, use of academic language. 3B2, discussion techniques and student participation. And 3C2, purposeful and productive instructional groups. So this first video clip, we're going to focus on clarifying the MMALC essential roles and responsibilities. And we've seen this document before with 8 specific MMALC essential responsibilities, and it's quite overwhelming. At Summer Institute, we had all of you participate in the gallery walk with the yellow posters, and all of these ideas and tips came from you all as MMALC coaches. And so we've transferred all of the yellow posters into this virtual gallery walk slide deck, and that's for you to peruse. Now, beyond these 8, they're very overwhelming, so decided to simplify them into really 5 umbrellas of tasks and responsibilities. And we're going to go through these one by one. The first is, as a MMALC, your job is to advocate. So again, we're eliminating those opportunity gaps. We're advocating for inclusion of our students in that Tier 1 instruction, equity through that Tier 2 instruction, and of course, access to all of the strategies and tools that are going to allow our students to achieve student success, especially in the acquisition of language. And so when we think about advocating, there's a few things that we can do to advocate, right? Such as the ILT meetings, the SSPT meetings, and of course, promoting that pathway to biliteracy all year. We're also going to look at how we monitor student data through data chats, and those data chats are going to happen in multiple ways, including at those SSPT meetings. We're going to have data chats with students, with teachers, and of course with families for transparency. The next big umbrella is facilitating professional development. So again, you're specifically going to be providing that targeted Tier 2 small group instruction for 60% of the school day, but we also want to support that Tier 1 instruction through strong instructional practices. And so you're going to facilitate 4 professional developments to support the entire staff and all of the students that you may not work with during Tier 2. Next, we're going to think about your role in coaching. Again, you may have a staff of 10 or a staff of 80, and you can't possibly coach every single one. So we're going to look at, just like we're going to select a caseload of students, PLTELs and LTELs, you're going to also select a caseload of teachers that you want to work with and support to strengthen their Tier 1 instruction. And then finally, we're going to look at the teaching component, how to pull data to identify those PLTEL and LTEL students, and looking at what strategies, what tools exist so that you can implement that targeted Tier 2 instruction. So we're taking the 8 essential roles and responsibilities and really consolidating them into these 5 buckets. Let's go a little bit deeper into the first one. The first one is that you're an advocate. And so what does that mean? That means that if you haven't already joined your school's ILT, your instructional leadership team, you're going to go ahead and make sure that you reach out to your admin team and make sure that they've added you to that email list, to that team. Usually a school might meet monthly, sometimes bi-monthly. And so that really will differ by school, but at each meeting, you are representing our emergent bilingual students and making sure that when they're talking about assessments or instructional strategies, that you're constantly advocating for EL students. SSPT meetings are also another component that you need to join. And again, this might not even happen monthly. It might happen quarterly as you're looking at reclassification data, you're looking at grades, and perhaps making special recommendations for specific students who are not reclassified and may need to, for example, waiver out, or they need additional tutoring. So that SSPT meeting is where you're advocating for specific students to make a change in their program or interventions. And so again, that's not going to happen weekly, that's going to happen monthly, maybe quarterly. There is an SSPT designee at your school site as well. If you're not sure who that is, reach out to your admin team and find out who that is so that you are present at all of those SSPT meetings. And then finally, you're advocating for biliteracy. So TK through 3, 5th, and 8th grade, you are making sure that parents, families, community members, students know about the Pathway to Biliteracy Awards. And then for our high school students, you are informing them about the State Seal of Biliteracy, which they can achieve by 12th grade. And so again, the way you're going to accomplish this is by having an information booth at back to school night, at parent conferences, open house, any of those meetings for a minimum of at least 2 times a semester. So this is how you're also reaching out to families. If there's an ELAC meeting, chat with the principal. If you see any of those on your calendar, you can ask to present and share this information as you see fit. So make sure that you have access to those calendars and those events as well. And again, this work is not going to happen daily. You're going to look for those opportunities in the calendar to share the information with parents and families. So a lot of the advocating isn't done daily. It's more sporadically throughout the year. The next big responsibility is monitoring. And so we're going to look at the data that you can share with students, families, and teachers, and how to strategize as well. So when you're thinking about students, some of the first data that you can look at is the iReady exam, which they're going to take 3 times a year. Beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the end of the year. We know that this is one of the new components for the reclassification criteria. And one of the first things that you can share, especially with those Profile C students who met all the reclassification criteria except for iReady, you can have a data chat with Profile C students in these first 3-4 weeks of school. And ideally, you're going to show them that they've met all the criteria except for iReady. And as a result, you're going to let them know what the goal score is. And you're going to work with them in small groups to prepare them for iReady Boy. And if they are able to reach approaching the standard, then they will reclassify because the other 2 criteria are still in place. Another data set that you can share with students are the IRPs, which I believe take place in November. Those are due with the help of your EL designee. So this is the individual reclassification plan, very similar to looking at the boy data for iReady. The students will be able to look at the reclassification criteria and which of the criteria they have met, which they are missing, and then think about commitments for meeting the criteria. So this is a great way to get to know your students, and then of course to discuss goal setting with them. So that's usually taking place in September, October. Finally, and not finally, but this is just one more idea, is to, once they have students take the iReady middle of the year, you can have another conversation with them, especially as they go into the summative LPAC in the spring. So right after they get that iReady MOI data, you can meet with them strategically to discuss goal setting for their LPAC. So those are just a few ideas. You're able to discuss any data set with your students. And of course, we want you to think about dates because we want to plan intentionally. And we want to make sure that we have those down at the beginning of the year. With teachers, we suggest one of the first data chats that you have with them, and you can do this as a professional development if your admin team allows it. And if your PD plan is impacted, you can have data chats and meet with teachers one-on-one during their conference periods. You can print out their EL progress monitoring rosters, and we'll look at that in another clip. And you can have them identify their PLTEL and LTEL students and complete one of those intervention tools where they're going to look at the LPAC scores by domain, or maybe that iReady score, so they can think about who specifically they will need to support with reading strategies. So the EL progress monitoring rosters are a great way to start those data chats with teachers so they can identify who their students are. And this would be great to do, I would say, the first month of school. Again, try to be strategic. Hopefully you can meet with most of your teachers if it's not realistic. Again, pick your caseload of teachers that you want to identify that have large numbers of PLTELs and LTELs and meet with them person to person. And for everyone else, you might want to prepare a packet with their rosters and maybe resources that they can use in the meantime. You can also discuss iReady Boy once those results come in as a grade level during those grade level meetings or PLC meetings. And then finally, of course, after MOI and as you're prepping for LPAC. So just keep these dates in mind so that when they release the data, you're thinking about how you want to build in time for teachers to look at that data again, whether it's during a PD time or whether it's during grade level team meetings, or whether you need to specifically meet with some teachers one-to-one during their conference period. And finally, families. So one of the big things, we want to make sure that we are transparent with our families and letting them know school-wide what is the reclassification criteria, what are our current school-wide EB demographics and reclassification rate. And of course, you want to let them know what your school-wide emergent bilingual action plan is, and of course, instructional foci. So again, what are you as a school site doing to support the reclassification process and language development for our students? So this is a good meeting to have with parents. Again, you can do this during ELAC, at back to school night, during chat with the principal. These are all opportunities for you to go in and share the data with families. And of course, we also would like you to invite them to come back and have them walk classrooms. Families love this. It's very far and few in between the opportunities that they receive to actually go into classrooms and check out how students are learning. And so you can work with a few other team members, break parents up into groups, and go into classrooms with very specific look-fors. Again, if an instructional foci for your school site was language objectives, you're going to prep the families before time. What are we looking for? Language objectives, or maybe the use of discussion guides, or maybe the use of the 3 listens protocol. Then we want to make sure that we create a simple look for us, and we are inviting the parents to come in and observe that those practices are being implemented. And then you can invite them back for a debrief. And then you would repeat the process at least once during the spring. So once during the fall is ideal, and once during the spring. So again, going back to the professional development, you're working mostly with the tier 2 instruction in small groups, but again, you want to make sure that we have strong and highly effective tier 1 instruction. And we're going to be able to do that through PD. So we know that this year we have 2 PDs that are obligatory. It's translanguaging as well as CLRP strategies. You are not being told specifically when you have to do these. So just think about, okay, you might want to start with these 2 at the beginning of your year in the fall semester. You might want to hold them off until spring if you are able to identify other needs or other PDs that you feel like are going to be more important for your staff. So you have other options. And remember, you can look at the school-wide PD calendar, but you can also talk with your admin and ask if you're able to do enrichment professional development after school for an hour, if there's funding for that. Is it an option to invite teachers for an optional Saturday PD, which would be enrichment? You can also ask if you're able to offer a period by period PD, and this would work ideally in secondary schools. So again, these are all creative solutions to making sure that our teachers are receiving those opportunities to learn and strengthen that tier 1 instruction. All right, and coaching. So we're going to be looking at different coaching strategies, but again, we just want to clarify that you're going to coach teachers. Again, you're going to select your caseload of teachers who you want to work with most closely. And again, just with anything, you want to start with data. So make sure that you're popping into different teachers and different classrooms and kind of collecting your data to see who are the teachers that I might want to work with the most? Who's going to be most receptive to the coaching, as well as who are the students in the class that may need the most differentiation and the most support. So you're going to select those teachers as teachers that you want to work with through lesson planning, co-planning, as well as you pushing in through differentiated strategies. And we'll talk more about coaching cycles in the next few weeks. All right. And then finally, we want to get to teaching. So this is where 60% of your time in your school day will happen. You're going to push in. We've received a lot of questions about, can we pull out in the same way the primary promise model worked? And unfortunately, in this role, that's a no. We're going to push in. You have to, again, select the teachers strategically according to the highest number of PLTEL and LTEL students. And for the most part, a lot of our MALC coaches are selecting push in during designated ELD time. And this is, I think, particularly going to be helpful for secondary teachers as we see that there's a change in the policy for placement. And we're going to have a diverse ELD course in each grade level with second-year ELD students. All the way through long-term English learners. And so they're going to need that support in differentiating in those secondary classrooms. For elementary, I think the push-in model can happen during designated ELD, but it can happen during integrated as well during any time of the day. So you might be working with a few teachers in the morning during small group time, and maybe in the afternoon, you might be working with a few teachers during integrated math instruction, making sure that you're able to support small group instruction and scaffold for our emergent bilingual students during that math time. Again, every school is going to be different. Your administrator may also have more of a vision of how they want to leverage your support. So all of these things need a lot of planning and strategy.